Did you guys learn anything new about minimalism? Did you learn anything new about yourselves in creating this film?
I remember looking over at Ryan, like, what in the hell have we gotten ourselves into?
Like, we have 96 more of these left?
All right, so to recap episode 1, we had our idea to create a documentary about simple living and to start by filming Josh and Ryan's 100 city book tour. We had a team, and I had all of my gear. From there, we hit the road. 3 of us went out on tour, but in reality, it was actually 4 of us. There was somebody named Sweeter Coles on the trip. When you're on the road for long enough, you develop mechanisms to help pass the time. One of Ryan's was an alter ego named Sweeter Coles, an obnoxious, loud mouth that interjects in conversation when you least expect him to.
Hey, what's on the other side of that camera? Hey, are you recording right now? I think this documentary's going great. It'll blow your mind.
It's everything that Ryan wouldn't ever say.
Yeah.
All right, enough fun and games. We had a movie to make. So we had 2 goals for our road trip across the country. The first was to document and capture Josh and Ryan's book tour, including their events, speaking engagements, and television appearances.
Ready?
I was born ready.
Nice.
Hello, thanks for coming out. My name is Ryan Nicodemus, and this is the Joshua Fields Milburn. And together we run a website called theminimalists.com.
Things started off pretty slow. Our second goal was to film minimalists in many of the cities we visited. I thought this would be our biggest hurdle, but Josh and Ryan had it figured out. How did you land those interviews?
It was really about developing relationships before shooting the film. And I found the best way to establish those relationships is to offer value first, not ask for something.
Right.
Like with Sam Harris. Hey, we have 4 million readers on our blog. You have a book coming out. I've gotten a lot of value from your other books in the past. Would love to interview you and introduce that to our audience. No strings attached. And he said yes. And so when it came time that if we ever did want to ask them for something like to be in a film, it was a win-win for everybody. Instead of us just reaching out and saying, hey, let us interview you without developing any rapport, it'd be a lot harder.
From there, we started conducting the interviews.
I'm Jarl Kraner.
So my name is Monty Shanker.
So I'm Tammy Strobel.
My name is Joshua Becker, and I am
I'm pretty anxious when we first start the interviews. In the beginning, I'm unsure if we'll get what we need. Then after a few interviews, I start wondering how the hell I'm gonna tie all this together. At first, I started looking for commonalities. What ideas and habits were these people developing that helped them to live happier lives? And then I had this big realization that it was the differences that would be most interesting. Nobody wants to watch an 80-minute film that just repeats the same exact ideas over and over again. One of the earliest interviews that stood out to me was with AJ Leon.
My name is AJ Leon. I'm a writer. I write on a...
We only sat down with him for 15 minutes at the back of a bookstore, but it was just so powerful. He talks about the realization he had moments before quitting his job on Wall Street.
When you recognize that this life is yours and that it is your one and only, and when that ceases to be esoteric bullshit, when that's not hippie poetry anymore, when the pragmatism of that statement seeps directly in your bones and you recognize that this is it, everything changes, you know, and you make these wildly different decisions. So that was the moment that it just struck me and I thought, I gotta go.
Every time I watch that clip, I want to quit a job I don't have.
This is Matt. He has a big camera with him.
We continued on the road filming nearly every day. We decided early on that we wanted to be open about the experience. We didn't know what footage would become important, which interviews necessary. One of my favorite interviews, and I think a story of being open and being open to anything that may come in our way, was with Frank Messia, the architect.
Well, I'm Frank Messia. I'm an architect in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, so we were in Tucson and we gave our talk, and Frank was the moderator.
Hi guys, I'm your moderator.
Howdy.
Hello.
I'm a hugger. My name is Joshua.
Okay, well, give me a hug.
Nice to meet you.
Frank, what's up, man? Me too.
Huggers?
Yeah,
Okay.
nice to meet you, man.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up early.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're living our life depending on the space we've got rather than creating our space to fit our lives. When we question
the wrong way, we come up with the wrong answers. So I think a lot of it is we don't really understand how it is we're living.
Towards the end of production, I got advice from another filmmaker. He said, if your story doesn't change along the way, then you're not listening. I thought I had minimalism figured out before heading into this project, but I realized I still had a lot to learn. Did you guys learn anything new about minimalism? Did you learn anything new about yourselves in creating this film?
In terms of minimalism, I learned about how flexible it was. You know, I think I knew that intellectually before going into filming this, but I didn't understand it as much emotionally, viscerally, until we hit the road and started talking to all of these different people, whether it's Leo and his 6 kids, or Joshua Becker in the suburbs, or Jay and his tiny house, or Tammy and Logan in their tiny house, or Graham in a micro apartment. And all of these people, they have different preferences, they have different desires, they have different interests, but they're all minimalists, right? They found this thing that worked for them so they could live more deliberately.
In the first episode, I talked about our music composers, Drew and Nate. But up until this point in the process, we actually hadn't met them yet. And we didn't know what we wanted to do in terms of the score. Licensing music can be tricky and expensive. You've got to deal with separate rights for film festivals, theatrical release, online release, and streaming. We weighed the pros and cons and eventually decided to create an original score. While we were in California, Josh reached out to Drew Capener. He wanted to interview him, but I think secretly he also had this plan to ask him to score the film.
Sure. My name is Andrew Clifford Capener. I'm a designer, musician, creator.
It was just after our tour that we officially got them on board. We're starting to spend a little bit of money at this point. By the end of production, which includes new interviews we haven't gotten to yet, we'd spend $4,894.20. This doesn't include travel and lodging while we were on tour. I was simply tagging along with Josh and Ryan, so we didn't classify that as a film expense. And to be fair, I had a lot of camera gear heading into this project. The total cost of gear for production was just under $30,000. Much of this gear is now cheaper today, and for the filmmaker looking to make their first feature, it could be done with much less. To give you a beautifully tragic example of how the industry is changing, I just purchased my Canon C300 at the start of the film for $14,000. About a year later, Canon dropped the price by almost $6,000. It's depressing for me, but good news for the aspiring filmmaker. After I finished filming on tour with Josh and Ryan, we had plenty of footage to keep me busy.
I mean, we had several, 1,000 hours worth of footage if you count all the sunrises that you were trying to film.
So many failed sunrises.
Yeah, all those time-lapse scenes.
And I remember Ryan just sort of looking at you when we were dropping you off at the airport like, good luck with that, man.
On the next episode, I enter the editing suite, also known as my bedroom. I edit a version of the film everyone loves. And then 2 days before our first screening, I recut the entire thing.
My first reaction was, no, what is this? No, man, no, don't change it.
I remember watching the Fargo cut that made me think you were delusional.
To see the next episode and to watch more videos on simple living, go to my website, mattdiavella.com.